All right, good afternoon, everyone. Distinguished guests, speakers, professors, colleagues, staff member, all of you present today. Welcome to our first OER celebration event hosted by Math and Natural Science Department. So we are so grateful to all of you for taking the time of your busy schedule to be here or following us virtually. So we are proud to announce that today is not just a celebration for math and natural science accomplishment when it comes to OER, but it is a celebration for all the outstanding work that have been done about OER across the college. So I got to thank my fellow co-host, Martha, Josh from Natural Science, and Sandra from the Math Department for their outstanding work, time dedication, energy, all of the above, just to make this event, possible and successful. A special thanks to the CUNY-wide OER initiative coordinated by Ann Fittler and Andrew McKinney for, their support from day one since spring 2017, I believe, until today, so they keep supporting us. I gotta thank them. Without further ado, so let me introduce and welcome Andy McKinney from CUNY Central.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Let's see if I know how to run PowerPoint. There we go. View. Slideshow, just start, please. Thank you. Okay, so like we said, my name is Andy McKinney. I'm the OER Coordinator at the CUNY Office of Library Services. I've been in that job since the summer of 2018, which I'm here to talk to you about the past, present, and future of OER at CUNY, of which LaGuardia is a very important part. So the OER initiative has been going on, as we know it, since around the spring of 17, really kind of into the fall of 17. But it predates that, so we started out doing OER work. There were a lot of sort of disparate little programs happening. I think a little bit of here, maybe in the library, a little bit at like City Tech or at BMCC, but we really got started with a grant from this group called Achieving the Dream to establish these, what they call Z-degree pathways, or abilities for students to go through one major, take their gen ed courses and the courses in their major, and incur no textbook costs at all as they go through it. That was a grant that went to 3 of our campuses. It was a nationwide grant that was, like, I think 38 colleges, but we had involvement from Hostos, BMCC, and Bronx Community. And as we were sort of working through that, there'd also been some lobbying efforts at the state that really made the state sort of understand OER and the benefits of zero textbook costs for students. And by the summer, by the sort of budget time in April or March of 2017, the governor's office just cold called us and said, we'd like to give you some money. Would you take it? And of course we said yes. But if anybody knows, spending money, tax levy money in a short period of time can be a little difficult. So we didn't think it would be the $4 million that it ended up being, but thankfully it did. So by the summer of 2017, we were trying to scale up all this stuff, trying to really figure out what we were doing. Sent out an RFP to each campus, sort of modeled on the coordinated undergraduate education, or CUE folks who do a sort of similar thing with a similar pot of city money. And just asked for people's interest and wanted to know what people wanted to do, and we got a massive response, right? From all over the system, and ever since then we've just been rolling, right? So we've been focused on both open educational resources, but also on sort of just lowering the cost of a textbook in a course to 0, right? And that might be with open educational resources, openly licensed content, but it might also be with content that's freely available on the web. It might be content that we are licensing via our library. It might be any number of things, right? So we've seen, like I said, sort of massive interest from the community colleges, from the senior colleges, from the graduate schools. Everybody's interested in this, right? It's really interesting. It's really sort of impactful to students. We all know the statistics, I would hope, of what our students are going through, right? Most of them are working. A lot of them have families. We have data from several years ago that said 40% of students who go to CUNY are coming from households that make less than $20,000 a year, right? So we're talking about students who any money that we can save them is going to be a benefit to them at possibly at a sort of retention level, right? They're more likely to take your class and continue to be in your class if they don't have to pay for a textbook. But there's also mental health and other sort of benefits that you accrue here. So we are in year 6 of this money, right? Ending year 6, we'll be into year 7 for the next fiscal year. So that's 6 times 24, or 6 times 4, which is 24 million that the state has invested in us. And our return on that money has been system-wide $193 million saved. Now that number is big and flashy and involves not only just 0 textbook costs, but we also have, so I would imagine most folks know, so the way that we track this is there is an indicator in CUNY First that is ZTC, right? So a course that has 0 textbook cost should be, ideally, marked as 0 textbook cost. And that happens a lot of ways. If you're familiar with the administration and registrars, we know that this, sometimes it's your departmental head who tracks that. Sometimes it's just the registrar. Sometimes individual faculty members can do it. Sometimes it's your course scheduler. Could be any number of things. So on top of that ZTC indicator, which was a part of the Achieving the Dream grant, we, I think in 2019, also advocated for and were able to get added to CUNY First a low textbook cost indicator that is any course that has a cost of textbooks between $25 and $1. So that includes, you know, folks who maybe are using a free textbook but are using a homework platform that is $25. That would be an LTC course. So if we take our average textbook, which from our calculations, which most of the OER coordinators on campuses have been able to give us sort of like when they convert a course, what the original textbook cost number was. When we averaged out all those, we came to a number that was right around, conveniently, at $100 for an average textbook cost. That includes, of course, courses where the textbook cost is, you know, $15 to $30. And that, of course, also includes courses like, you know, maybe an intro to chem or intro to bio, where the textbook is somewhere between $180 and $300, right? So we get around in that space. So what we do is we take our, we can find all our sections, right? And this last fiscal year, so fall and spring 22 and 23, this includes sort of all the the way that, you know, the community colleges are on slightly different schedules. So I just got those numbers today, so that includes all of those. We're up around like about 9,000 sections system-wide that are ZTC, and a slightly smaller number, somewhere in like the 6,000, 7,000 for LTC. So if we add those all together, we make our calculations, we see what all our enrollments for those classes are. This is how we come to our $193 million over 6 years. I was recently at a conference or a sort of meeting for folks who were just getting started in what we call course marking, or sort of marking our OER courses. And there were several campuses that were there to sort of consult, like I was, who were saying, oh, you know, we're from this such and such system, we've saved this amount of money. And, you know, there were a couple, they're not as big as CUNY, right? CUNY is very, very large, where, you know, they were like, oh, 5 million, 10 million. And then I walked in the room and said, 193 million, and there were a couple audible gasps. So, you know, congrats to you for making me look great. It's, you know, I will also say, I know Ian will talk a lot more about OER at LaGuardia. You guys have been a tremendous partner the entire time. You've made incredible gains, and you're really in our sort of tier of colleges that we know when we, you know, when you give us a proposal, when we send the money out to your campus, we know we're going to get real product and real benefit back. So I just want to thank you for that. I do want to say just a couple of things about where we're going. So in the past couple of years, we've definitely been more interested in, you know, getting those course conversions, making sure we're getting that rate of return, right, that $193 million. So when the money comes up in the budget again in the state, we can say, look, we've given you this massive return, right? So we're pretty clear on what our return is already. So what we've been really trying to focus on in maybe the last 2 years is more getting the work that y'all are doing out to the larger world, right? A thing I like to think about a lot is higher education is many times determined by elite colleges, right? What we think is what we should be doing is whatever, you know, they're doing uptown at Columbia or at Harvard or Yale is doing. Frankly, I think that's ridiculous. What we do at CUNY and what CUNY is represents way more of what higher education actually is in this country than anything an elite college ever does, right? So if we're doing innovative work, if we're doing work that benefits our students who look more like college students than the college students at elite colleges do, then we should be sharing that. We should be getting plaudits for that. We should be getting congratulated for that. And the way we can do that is to get it out to more people to see it as a model, right? So with that in mind, we're trying to do sort of platform support and also new programs and to really encourage people to be creating more OER, to be getting their work out there. We have a university-wide installation of Pressbooks, which I know several folks here at LaGuardia are already using, that will, when you're producing in Pressbooks, not only is it free and open to the world, but it also is going to get indexed in the Pressbooks' larger directory, where the sort of where folks are going to look for OER to remix. And also, we're sort of still in the development process of this concept of what we're calling the CUNY Open Press. So CUNY doesn't have a press, right? So we're trying to, my office, the Office of Library Services, is really trying to fill that space and say, we're already doing this amazing OER work here at CUNY and other open access work that we're doing. Why can't we start to build a kind of open editorial support sort of thing around it? And then again, like I said, really get out the innovative work that we're doing here. So you'll be hearing more about that in the next year or two. So be on the lookout. And that is my time. And I'm going to pass it over to whoever's next. Thank you very much for having me.
So now, thank you, Andy. So I'm going to welcome my friend and co-host of the OER seminar, Professor Ian McDermott from the library.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for being here. It's really nice to be talking to you about OER at LaGuardia. Many thanks to Andy for the great opening remarks. So what I want to do today is give a very brief kind of overview of where we've been and where we are and where we're going locally here at LaGuardia. And so just for starters, those of you who have maybe seen me present about OER before or have been in the OER seminar, I like to start with like definitions and kind of taking things from kind of the basics. So just so everybody who's watching or is here is really clear, I often like to turn to the definition of open educational resources provided by UNESCO. That is the teaching, learning, and research materials, digital or otherwise, that reside in the public domain or have been released under an open license that permits no-cost access, use, adaptation, and redistribution by others with no or limited restrictions. And I think that really touches on a lot of the key aspects of OER that we think about, that we want to make these materials and share them in ways so that not only our students can use them when we're teaching, but so that our colleagues around the world can also take them, use them as they are, or also potentially have the opportunity to transform them and use them in ways that better suit their particular situation. And I think that's really one of the keys that I've found so rewarding about doing work here at LaGuardia, specifically with OER, is that all of the colleagues who are going to be presenting today are really going to give you that insight about how the needs of LaGuardia students are really met by the allowances that we have when we're using OER and these kind of open platforms. So I'm going to elaborate just for a moment on what Andy was just talking about and give you a very quick snapshot of what's been happening both at CUNY, or at LaGuardia, but I'm going to start very quickly with CUNY. So beyond that $193 million number, I would definitely recommend that you take a look at the series of really good annual reports that the Office of Library Services has been creating about OER at CUNY. I don't have it on the screen, but let me just read a couple of numbers. So as of fall of 2021, over 31,000 sections across CUNY have converted their courses to OER, and over 31,000 have also converted to what Andy termed the low cost. So ZTC zero cost and low cost. So that's well over 60,000 sections across the entire system. And that has impacted 750,000 students in either category. So as I think it's very true that what we're doing here at CUNY is reaching an enormous amount of students, and it's really good to keep that in mind. But at the same time, and this is what I'm going to get into in just a couple minutes, that what we're doing here at LaGuardia, what's part of what has been so enriching for me is that we see things happening to scale. We see the math department, we see the natural science department using OER in high enrollment courses, dozens of sections, but we also see two colleagues collaborating on like one course and doing really amazing work that still has a really fantastic impact. And it's that kind of scale of like the micro to the macro with OER that I think is really fantastic, and I want to take a little bit of time to explain to you. But before that, let me just also start with another motivator for getting involved with OER. The price of textbooks continues to be very high. I do library instruction sessions throughout the semester, and I always ask students to raise their hand if they've had to spend a lot of money on a textbook this semester, and more often than not, at least one, if not more, 5 or 6 students raise their hand, and we hear about textbooks that cost $250. As you can all understand, even $40 is a lot of money for a student to spend on a book, essentially. So that's one motivation, and that is often the kind of hook that we've used to get people involved with OER here at LaGuardia. And one of the reasons and one of the compelling kind of arguments is that the cost of textbooks has outpaced the consumer price index. It has outpaced the increases we see in medical services, new home costs. This is a really kind of runaway market that students are left to deal with. When I started doing this work, it was generally accepted that students should expect to pay around $1,300 per year for their educational materials. And even today, on the LaGuardia website, it says $1,500. So while we do a lot here at LaGuardia to bring those prices down, it's still a very present reality for students that they are still spending a lot of money on their learning materials. And as we've been over, that could be a textbook, that could be a homework platform. There are a lot of ways that students still end up paying a lot of money beyond tuition and everything else. So to get into what's been happening at LaGuardia, so each year since, well, I guess technically 2017, not 2018. I feel like things really took off here in 2018. We've been lucky enough to receive a portion of the $4 million grant that New York State awards to CUNY and SUNY each year. Now, each June, a call goes out, and I'll talk about this at the end a little bit. So it's really up to us to put together really good proposals and continue this excellent work. The money is there, and we have a really great partnership with the Office of Library Services. We have great partnerships within the college here. And so, I encourage everyone to apply who has projects that they think they really want to pursue. The earliest work that we did here, at least from my position in the library, as Andy indicated, there were a few things happening before this grant started, and frankly before my time at the college. But around 2018, we started offering introductory workshops for primarily instructors, both full-time and adjunct faculty. And what we were doing is we were introducing them to OER textbook alternatives in the classes that they currently teach. And this was a really nice way, kind of low-hanging fruit, like this really tangible example, like currently I assign a $200 textbook, but look, there's a free one, you know, published by an imprint like OpenStax run out of Rice University. So we're talking about a very high quality, but free online textbook that may be only $20 or $30 to buy if you want the print version, but that's not a requirement. So it was really nice to introduce faculty to that through that workshop, and faculty were also incentivized to both review a textbook so that there's like a growing body of like peer, kind of, you know, loosely put peer review of these textbooks. And they would also receive an additional stipend if they adopted the book and taught with it themselves. So this was a real early way to get people involved and engaged. And frankly, it worked very well. We had, I would say, each semester, you know, close to 30 to 40 faculty members would attend. So we did that workshop for 2 years. We definitely reached over 100 faculty members. Some wrote reviews, some adopted textbooks, some just came by and learned a little bit about OER. But either way, it was a great opportunity to introduce them to OER. And I really want to mention the like I have on my slide here, the incentives that I think it's very important that people get paid for this work that they're doing if they're going to write a review of a textbook. If they're going to do the work to change the textbook for their course, we're able to offer, you know, modest stipends to support this kind of work. And at the same time, the MEC department was piloting a few different platforms. So it was a really exciting moment to see, as we were introducing people through the library, MEC was really like off and running and trying to choose which platform they would work with, which they all ultimately landed on using MyOpenMath and Lumen Learning, and really started adopting OER at scale in a lot of their courses, which they continue, you know, to do this to this day. So from 2020 to the present, I feel like things accelerated very quickly. You know, I just mentioned the math department continued with their amazing work. The natural science department started converting a lot of their courses, and that was also a really remarkable process to be involved with in my capacity. Seeing all of these courses, you know, getting converted to OER, whether it was like lab manuals, textbooks, quizzes, you know, homework assignments. You realize when you're using OER, it's not just that textbook. There's so much work that goes into converting an entire course, training all of the instructors who teach those various sections, you know, having course coordinators working with people on the OER side of things. It's been a really remarkable process to see, and I think it just kind of speaks to a lot of the really wonderful collaborations that we have here at LaGuardia. As you see on the slide, I also, in 2020, through this state grant, because we were doing so much work converting courses, we were eligible for additional funding to hire adjunct librarians and educational technologists. And so some of you worked with Von Betran over a couple of years, who was a really amazing librarian who worked here for 2 years. And now more recently, we have really wonderful colleagues, Emma Hanta, who's here in the audience, and Rena Grossman, who's at another OER event here at the college, who have been collaborating with departments all over the college to help bring these things to fruition. And I really think it's a really amazing collaboration. I'm really grateful to work with them, and I'm really grateful that we had the means to have that consistency where people have been able to stay for multiple years and work on these projects. And then we've necessarily shifted our model. So no longer are we offering these introductory workshops where you just learn about textbooks. We now, in collaboration with MEC and with Natural Science, I've been co-facilitating a seminar, and the Center for Teaching and Learning. We've been offering a seminar that's kind of like adjacent to CTL seminars, but receives a lot of support from them, that meets 4 to 5 times a semester, where we introduce people to the various issues that you're going to encounter when you start to convert a course to OER, because you have to think about copyright, you have to think about accessibility and universal design. There are so many really complicated factors and things you need to take into account, and we've been able to support those aspects of the process through this seminar, and it's really been a multidisciplinary seminar. So we'll have people from, we've had instructors teaching screenwriting, working alongside people teaching, algebra. And it's a really nice opportunity for people to see what one another is up to, but also, just that cross departmental collaboration is really invaluable. And we've been really grateful to offer that seminar for the past 3 years. And from the kind of professional development standpoint, that's the main program we've been offering here. But part of what's nice is that while we're able to offer that, and we have 10 to 15 faculty members every time, we've been doing this long enough that there are just projects that are off and running. So not everybody needs to be a part of the seminar. It's become a much more self-sustaining model this way. And just to touch on that briefly, some of the fruits of this kind of ongoing collaboration, I just want to mention a few projects really quickly. I've been a part of the first year seminar textbook project, which is in some ways a really great example because faculty from different departments have come together, led by Ellen Quish in the first year experience, to write a brand new textbook for the first year seminar courses. So this is one textbook that can be used across many different classes. At the same time, there have been really wonderful departmental projects. English has a really amazing open educational resource library that uses CUNY Academic Commons, which is one of our fantastic tools that we have available to us that is open and allows us to create materials that reach a much broader audience than if we're just making like our own little website, like on a local server, for example. Not to disparage that, I think we'll hear a little bit about that later. But that it really helps us increase our reach to others. The ELA department, Education and Language Acquisition, their education program has converted, to the best of my knowledge, their entire program now to OER textbooks. Similarly, in humanities, there's an HUC textbook committee that's been adopting OER for communications classes. And as I'm sure all of you know, those are very high enrollment classes, and so that's really having a big impact on students. And then finally, I referenced earlier examples where like 2 faculty are working on a project together that's not like, for a course with 20 different sections, but both Professors Milena Cuellar and Reem Jafar are working on a really exciting project looking at equity data in STEM disciplines, where they are, instead of just creating a textbook or a set or like a homework assignments, what they're doing is they're creating a curriculum for instructors to audit their own course materials so that they are making, whether it's their syllabus or their homework assignments, any material so that it is more equitable and inclusive. And so it's basically a way to run an audit on your course materials in order to better meet the needs of LaGuardia students. And so they're running that as a seminar, but it's also going to be available as a kind of OER publication in press books. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That's another really exciting project. And so I just wanted to end with just a few kind of major themes and future directions. So I was lucky enough to recently write an article with Josh and with Alioun and Emma and Marta and our other colleague Rena, who's not here. And it was published in the Journal of Interactive Technology and Pedagogy. And what we emphasized in that is it was 3 case studies authored by Josh, Alioun, and Marta, where we looked at this process-oriented OER implementation. So we can see where collaboration is really key, but also is really necessary when, for example, if you're using software like MyOpenMath that has some pretty advanced coding possibilities, what if you don't know how to code very well? And we see instructors working with each other and teaching each other how to do this coding. So people who started out not knowing at all now can like write quizzes and use the code necessary in MyOpenMath. So that's one example of this kind of process-oriented approach that is really core to what we do here. And this relates to open educational practice, that as much as possible, I'm really interested in seeing how our collaborative work together speaks to these open educational practices, and not just thinking about the thing that we make that ends up in students' hands, but it's really about a kind of a culture and a process that we have here together. Part of that means really increasing our efforts to make the materials we create accessible and incorporate universal design principles. You know, the tools that we have are not always inherently accessible, and so it really does take extra work to do that, and that's something that we advocate for strongly in the seminar, and I hope that we can build more and more here at the college. And then additionally, I think something that we've all, all of us who are involved in these projects have thought about is that the metrics for assessing this work sometimes feel a little misaligned with what we're doing. So for example, the 193 million, it's a big number, but the amount of money that we save via these textbooks may not always be the greatest measure of success. And I think that as we continue this work, finding new ways, like I just mentioned what Professors Cuellar and Jafar are doing with equity data and STEM, finding ways to assess ourselves, finding ways to get more testimonials from students, and assessing the impact of these OER, both on their outcomes, but also from like a qualitative standpoint. I think this kind of work will be really valued as we go forward with this grant. And I'll just close by saying that the next call should be out in June. Is that right, Andy? June? Yeah, so in June, stay tuned. For the past 2 years, I've led a workshop online on Zoom, helping people learn more about how to apply. And then I've had a lot of follow-up conversations about proposals. And so you're free to reach out to me, but I will also announce when that workshop is coming up, because it does fall at kind of an awkward time. It's like end of the semester, everyone's about to scatter, in many directions, and we have to do this work of applying for this grant. So I'm happy to, help facilitate that process, and we've always worked really strongly with the Provost's office on that, and I expect we'll continue to do that. So with that, I really look forward to hearing more about your work in the future, and I look forward to hearing more about what our great colleagues have to say here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. Hello, everyone. All right, so I'm going to try to present our overall work that we have done so far in the math department. And I am so happy and so delighted to be here today because, it was not an easy journey. It was a long one, but an exciting one. And I remember the very first day in spring 2017 when Abdel called me in his office and was talking to me about OER, Open Educational Resources. And the first thing that came to my mind was, what the heck is that? And, and I run to Ian's office in the library, and we start digging into some information. And guess what? We're here today to celebrate what we have done in our department, not just in our department, all across LaGuardia. So our first main reason why we wanted to launch the OER initiative in our department was to fight for more equitable access to education for our students. So according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, so the price of commercial textbook in higher education rose substantially from 1996 2000 to 2006, right before we launched the OER initiative. And the cost of mathematics textbook were extremely high, given that most of our LaGuardia students come from family with a household income less than $25,000. So in addition, so the license of commercial material prevented instructors, our instructors, to share, revise, or adapt material. So therefore, in spring 2017, so we launched the OER material initiative by starting to search for more suitable, reliable, scalable, and money-saving platform. Okay. So what made our OER project successful? One of it was a common understanding of the issue. So there was a strong understanding within the mathematics department that the cost of textbook, especially for remedial math and gateway courses, affected our student success. So faculty were ready to embrace the transition due to the department's long history of successful innovation. So almost every faculty member were part of, until today, every faculty member were part of the OER or taught an OER course were successfully trained prior to the semester. So the state of New York, as Ian mentioned, so granted $4 million per year to the city, University of New York, to enhance and sustain free access to open educational resources throughout CUNY. So our department received a portion of that fund to help redesign courses and facilitate the transition. So a team of faculty member was formed to redesign new OER courses template in spring 2017 using 3 different OER platforms, which was My Open Math, Khan Academy, and Webwork, to pilot in fall 2017. So a total of 10 OER courses were piloted in fall 2017, and at the end, we asked students and faculty members to evaluate the platform. And based on the outcomes, so the OER team selected to move on with My Open Math for the second phase of the pilot in spring 2018. In addition to the extensive assignment library, My Open Math to us was more reliable and suitable to our students and faculty needs, because prior to using My Open Math, so we're using Alex platform, which was a commercial platform that costs our students a lot of money, not just the textbook, but also the access code. So however, writing an additional question, if we wanted to make some questions, were challenging in My Open Math. So in spring 2018, we piloted 34 sections, including elementary algebra, fundamental algebra, college algebra correct, and elementary statistics using My Open Math and OHM Lumen, which is a premium version of My Open Math. So in fall 2018, so we implemented full-scale OER for all sections of fundamental algebra, introductory to algebra, elementary algebra, correct STEM, college algebra, and elementary statistics. And furthermore, so our quantitative reasoning, elementary statistics 2, pre-cal, and calculus theory entered the OER course design phase. Okay, and I'm going to let Sandra.
So as stated by Alion, in spring 2018, which was our pilot 2 phase, many faculty joined the OER project. We implemented leadership teams consisting of faculty teaching and leading elementary statistics, the correct STEM, fundamentals of algebra, elementary algebra, and a newly formed copyright team. So each team to collaborate on the design of the course through meetings and constant communication. So here's a slide about our full-scale timeline. The copyright team was formed before fall 2018. The goal of the team was to institute training for the department and oversee OER copyright compliance. The team consisted of faculty from the MEC and library departments. In fall 2018, as Alion stated, the MEC department implemented full-scale OER for all sections of fundamentals of algebra, intros to algebra, elementary algebra, co-rec STEM, college algebra, and elementary statistics. So at this time, we were using Lumen, and our quantitative reasoning, elementary stats 2, pre-calc, and calc series entered the OER course design phase. At the start of the semester, we provided training for faculty teaching OER courses and assigned faculty mentors for each course. The faculty mentors were available to help faculty new to OER with any of their issues or concerns. The department also held an OER forum during the semester where faculty shared their experiences teaching OER courses and shared recommendations for best pedagogical practices. The copyright team modified the master templates to make sure the OER contents were copyright compliant and that sources were properly cited. The team created a best practice guide for faculty and presented their work in spring 2019 at a college-wide professional development. During summer 2019, the OER leadership team collected data and assessment from 2018 to 2019. The sub-teams modified the master sections and syllabi, while the quantitative reasoning and calculus series continue to work on their OER courses. So I want to give you a look at what we did with our master sections, and this is a sample for one of our courses, the Math 115, which is the Algebra and Trig course. So this was work by a collaboration of all our faculty. So we have a calendar up there for students, and we have these different blocks made for the different parts of the course. At the top, you'll see that we have an instructor's learning packet, which is hidden to students, but there's also course materials, topics for review for this course. It has course content, a block for homework assignment, quizzes, and exam reviews and projects for depository courses. If you look into the instructor teaching packet, you'll see that we have a link to the CUNY First roster, and also some notes from the chairperson and the course coordinators. You can find that there. And then you'll see that in the course materials section, that's where the licenses and attributions block is, and that was work done by the copyright team. Okay. So as you can see, here is our outline, outcome from the first pilot phase in fall 2017. You'll see that the pass rates for the OER and non-OER sections courses were comparable. Here's the outcome for our second pilot phase, which was spring 2018. Sorry. The pass rates for the OER sections were comparable, similar to the fall, except that in the co-rec STEM course, the OER sections performed much better. Note that for all of these courses, we had departmental finals.
So open educational resources had provided our students a way to receive high-quality learnings, material at little or no cost to students. From 2017 to 2022, the academic year of 2017 to 2022. So we have 1577, which is 1,577 OER section, which include 41,288 students enrolled, and which save our students a maximum cost nearly of $3.8 million.
So we want to talk about, what happened from fall 2019 and onwards. For coding, I think Ian alluded to that. So in spring 2018, the question library bank in MyOpenMath and Lumen was limited, especially for the pre-calc questions, and many instructors expressed interest in learning to code questions for their classes. Our department provided training for both faculty and students. A coding questions workshop was held in January 2020 and was attended by approximately 60 faculty and 4 students. The attendees received a digital copy of the presentation. Now, the ability to code questions was extremely helpful when the pandemic hit in spring 1, 2020. Our department, MEC, decided that the departmental finals would be on Lumen, and we were able to code questions, custom questions for the final. Being able to code the custom questions allows instructors to shape the content of their assessments to the needs of the department and the specifics of the individual courses they are teaching.
So in spring 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic shifted all courses to distance learning, so requiring us to create and host accessible e-learning materials. So we use a manual accessibility checklist from Duke University to be certain our course contents were accessible to all our students. So at first, we made sure that all virtual course material were clearly labeled. So as Sandra showed on the MyOpenMath, so we had the quizzes, homework, exams, and exam practice. So we're organized and easy to access for students. So chapters was divided into separate content area, so each containing a portable document format, which is a PDF lecture, from the book, a video lecture, and supplemental resources are linked that were valuable to students' learning. So we converted all Word document that we had to PDF for better compatibility with screen reader, because PDF text, as you know, can be magnified much more than a Word document, and the background colors could be changed to improve accessibility. So we ensure all our PDF images and descriptions save into the alt text description. So we also edited the video lecture, which include the YouTube video lectures and video assignment, to make sure that they all content caption. And one fascinating thing also I got to mention, that when it comes to Math 120, all the video lecture that we have in Math 120 was recorded by one single professor who's been here for more than 50 years, Dr. Tony Giangrasso, who just dedicated his time to just recorded all the Math 120, video lectures. So in spring 2019, the expanded curricular offering. So in 2019, an OER pre-cal team was launched to develop OER material using OHM Learning, which is a previous version of MyOpenMath. So the pilot phase started since fall 2019, and the team prepared for the full-scale OER, which was implemented in fall 2021. So in the same time, in fall 2021, so we started the first pilot phase of Calculus 1 using MyOpenMath platform. So the team created a master course including reading material, video lesson, weekly homework, exams, and review, as well as the forum topics that foster critical thinking and active learning. So the full-scale implementation of Calculus 1 started in fall 2022. So the pilot phase of Calculus 2 and 3 started at the same time in fall 2022 as well. I want to thank you all for coming here. And we have some special guests, but before we went to the special guests, I first want to thank our dear chair and Dr. Belkaraz and Maria and Razi, because this was their idea. So they are the one who approach us and say, look, you guys have done a lot of work. We need to come up with an event. And, your strong support and the preparation have, make this event very, very successful. We also have to thank our dear provost who's here today, Dr. Billy Gastick Rosado. It's not a surprise that she's here because she's been supporting us with all our events. Even the last Pi Day she showed up. We're really, really thankful for all your support that you have done in the math department. And lastly, we have a very special guest. His presence is not a surprise to us, for those who knows him very well, for his dedication to students and, more importantly, his commitment to strengthen educational equity. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our president, Kenneth Adams.
Dr. Billy Gastick-Rosado, our esteemed provost, was worried. She sent me a text because I was over at the 29th Street Greenway Plaza event online for my free taco. Billy thought, you can't stand on that line. You're going to be there for like an hour and a half. You'll miss the OER celebration. So she got me here. I was on my way. No taco. It's great to be here. Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. And I almost feel like I'm interrupting. I am interrupting, coming in the middle of the program like this. But I did want to have a chance to greet you. And the thing I've got to do in my role is really thank you and just say things you already know, because I'm sort of preaching to the choir. But to thank you for this and put it in a bit of if I can, sort of a broader perspective. Because it's really very special, and it's, as you all know, a unique and important feature of LaGuardia. Before I say a couple of those words to that effect, I do want to recognize Dr. Abdel Idrisi Belkaraz, and of course Maria Intezari, the academic chairs who come together with MEC and natural sciences to make this happen, and both the event, but of course the support of the ongoing work. And you should know when I'm with them, they are, of course, they're tireless advocates for you and for your success, but they are big proponents of OER, and again, advocates well beyond events like this, constant advocates for the importance of OER. So thanks again for inviting me to be a part of today's celebration of the achievements that are made possible through the Open Educational Resources, or OER, initiative here at LaGuardia, and in particular, the leadership of natural sciences in MEC, and with the support of the Provost's Office and all the rest, Center for Teaching and Learning as well. The work that's been accomplished through OER at LaGuardia has been transformative. You all know that. It's kind of my job to be a champion of that outside of LaGuardia and remind people of that, which I try to do. OER, as you know, offers professors and students access to vetted and proven course materials and assessments, from textbooks to rigorous testing and assignments. OER continues to transform the quality in which LaGuardia offers all of our programs, and obviously beyond as well, beyond MEC and natural sciences. Through OER, professors are expanding students' access to learning, any student, anywhere, at any time. As education has shifted to remote learning in many parts of the world, ensuring ease of accessibility to learning resources is essential for our students. Instead of having to worry about buying a specific textbook or printing out a handout, students can access all OERs from any electronic device of their choosing, in most cases. Professors have the ability to customize OER materials, as you well know, you do this all the time, to fit their teaching needs and the needs of their students. Professors can easily tailor content to support their curricula in ways that empower them to be innovative and creative in the classroom. I think we often think of OER and its benefits for students, but it's obviously a really important benefit to faculty as well. The sheer variety of OER formats, some of which we've just been discussing, allow multiple modes of representation of key concepts. This is especially true in STEM. And this supports diverse learning strengths and styles. This aligns with the college's mission to make learning accessible to all of our students, no matter what their learning style may be. In order for LaGuardia to stay competitive among other higher education institutions, you often hear me speaking about enrollment and our enrollment challenges, We have to continue to explore ways that OER can help us elevate course offerings and the learning experience for students. By using OER, I know our talented professors, all of you, will continue to find ways to collaborate on cutting-edge topics with innovative pedagogy. And of course, and we saw a terrific slide a moment ago to illustrate this, OER saves our students a lot of money. I was staggered that it's almost up to $4 million in aggregate over the years measured in that chart. Then I was also reminded and whispered to Billy that if you think about the number of sections that got up to something like 1,700 in the last chart, in the last column of the chart, that's a truly remarkable percentage of all sections in an academic year at LaGuardia. So it's so great to see that, and of course it's great to see the economic benefit to our students. And I think someone said this, but at least in CUNY, a typical college student spends about $1,500 a year on textbooks, and that is a lot of money. For anybody, it's particularly an obstacle, or a lot of money for our LaGuardia students, as you know. Making a shift to OER teaching removes a costly burden for our students and makes a crucial difference in their quality of life, their ability to earn their college degree. Think of it another way, OER removes a big barrier for so many of our students, the cost of traditional textbooks, who are otherwise balancing food insecurity in many cases, housing challenges, and just the cost of living and surviving in a place like New York City. If you think about this recent articles, including the Times the other day, about the rising cost of living in New York City last couple of years, inflationary pressures and other things, you could argue that OER is needed now more than ever, just from an economic standpoint. In the natural sciences in MEC, I know courses can add up very quickly, and so we all have a deep appreciation for the work that's happened in these two departments for OER to give all of our students an equal opportunity to learn and ultimately earn their college degrees here at LaGuardia and beyond. So thank you again for inviting me to be here with you this afternoon, really to celebrate the success and to make it clear to all of you how much Billy and I support this and want to see it continue to grow and expand across the college. The part now where Billy gets nervous is when I go off script and share a few observations. I first became aware of OER when I was a dean at Bronx Community College. And the effort there was driven largely by library staff. I want to point that out. And we began also in STEM disciplines to pursue OER resources for our students in the Bronx who have the same economic profile, I should add, as our LaGuardia students. And I was unaware of it before then, so I've always been intrigued, and it's just really great to see the good fortune I have to be here with you at LaGuardia, to see now what I would say OER in full force, really rolled out in a substantial way all across the college. Now, recently Abdel said, he likes to tell me what I should tell everybody else about MEC and LaGuardia. So recently he said, LaGuardia is the biggest OER college in CUNY. Really? Yes, he was, when Abdel was, he said, we have more OER, more courses, more sections, we lead all of CUNY. I actually don't know if that's true, but the last time Abdel asserted something like that to me, he said, we really are a STEM college. Now, I can say this little story because who was in the room? Because, we're bigger than STEM, Abdel, but I know. So he says, you have to do a marketing campaign and go out and tell everyone in CUNY and everybody in New York City and beyond that we're a STEM college. I said, STEM's important. He says, no, we're really, really big in STEM. 3 days later, I find this article, Center for Mid-Urban Future, that LaGuardia is LaGuardia graduates the third greatest number of STEM graduates in all of CUNY, right? And we're LaGuardia Community College. We're only behind, slightly behind, CCNY and City Tech in downtown Brooklyn, and then LaGuardia. And this was actually research done by the Center for an Urban Future, an outside think tank that I'm a part of. And so Abdel was right. So when he tells me we lead the world in OER, I guess he's right. So I'll have to, saluting his advocacy. There's something important in the slide I do want to go back to again, which is academic performance. It's not enough just to look at the economic benefit for our students. I mean, that's truly important, but it wouldn't make sense to help students save money if they didn't do well academically with OER materials, right? And so that slide that you showed, in fact, there was one particular course, I think it was the CoRec, where there's a huge disparity. And the students in the OER material CoRec did much, much better than the students that took the traditional material, had the course with the traditional materials. So academic performance, the success of our students, you know, in their learning with OER materials, that's the number one reason to do this. That it causes, in my view, that it results in a great savings for them and removes an important hurdle from their economic challenges of their education, just as very important. But again, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't only celebrate the economic benefit if there wasn't a related and even superior academic benefit. So hold on to that slide. Finally, a word from our friends at Barnes & Noble. You've put them out of business. Now, you know, I'm not shedding a tear over that, but quite seriously, we have had, like many CUNY campuses, a long-standing agreement with Barnes & Noble to operate our college store downstairs in the M building. And they no longer want to operate. I'm not sure I've said this publicly, but we got news from Barnes & Noble. They're ending the contract. They don't want to run the college store anymore. They can't sell traditional textbooks there. This is true. We have so much OER material in those 1,700 plus sections. You're doing so well at this. They are kind of folding up the Barnes & Noble tent and leaving. And we actually have a challenge now because we still want to sell LaGuardia swag and aspirin and bubblegum and whatever you sell in a college store, you know, sweatshirts, T-shirts, but no more market for textbooks. So you put Barnes, congratulations, it's an interesting way to measure success, but Barnes & Noble's out of business, LaGuardia Community College, and that's true. Anyway, thanks again for sharing the stage with me, letting me come up to the podium for a couple of minutes. It's really remarkable. This is yet another, you know, I have a great job because I get to tell the world how wonderful LaGuardia is, and I pick different arguments for different audiences. And I'm always looking like, what makes LaGuardia a standout institution? And there are a number of things, and you know what they are, but adding OER as a really prominent feature of this college is a very important distinguishing factor, if you will, or a feature that distinguishes LaGuardia from its sister institutions. And final thought is I only wish, well, we should all wish, that it's not just great OER materials in courses in MEC and in natural sciences, but in all of our academic departments, wherever such materials work, right? It doesn't work always in nursing, for example, or it might, but it plays out differently in different departments. So we've got to make sure this great work you're doing in MEC and natural sciences runs throughout LaGuardia, through all of our sections and all our departments, and then in the senior colleges. And I think here's an interesting opportunity to get our students to be advocates for OER materials when they transfer to Baruch, Queens, City, New York City Tech, so that when we arrive there, they're not told, go to the college store at City Tech or at Hunter, you know, big store at Hunter, on Lexington Avenue, and spend $2,000 on your Hunter textbooks. Now, I sort of am hoping for the day, perhaps it's already happening, when LaGuardia students who've benefited from your OER materials, all your hard work, become advocates for OER materials at senior colleges, the senior colleges to which they transfer. Because as they do that, that will cause a transformational experience in those institutions over time, which will only be to the benefit of the students that are there that might not have come from LaGuardia, but come from other places, since everybody benefits from this, and our students become those champions. So I'll be your champion to the best of my ability. Of course, the provost is every single day, you know that. And with all of you, we'll just continue to push this throughout LaGuardia, throughout CUNY and beyond. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now we're going to have Josh and Martha from Natural Science do the presentation.
Hello, everyone. We're going to talk about OER resources in Natural Sciences Department. So in our department, focus is in threefold. We were looking to find free textbooks, creating free online assignments, and also working on the free lab manuals for biology, chemistry, and physics classes. Also, in addition to finding OER textbooks, there's a concern and to look for the instructor resources. But I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. So the textbook consideration for biology, chemistry, and physics have different priorities, depends which course it is. For general chemistry, biology, and physics, those courses go through the 2 semesters, so it's a concern, and look to make sure that the chapters are available for both semesters. Whether that particular OER textbook has instructor resources, that comes important where the classes are being taught by part-time faculty. So whether those instructor resources are available or whether we should create our own. Learning objectives, level of understanding, there are different courses at different levels, and so we were looking for a textbook that is accurate for that particular course. Some textbooks might be too easy, some might be too difficult. So that's also another area of consideration. Alignment with the lab schedule. Should we change the lab schedule? Should we change the order of the chapters in the textbooks? That was somewhat important in the chemistry courses. And quality of figures, diagrams, should faculty make their own? Can we make an improvement of those diagrams? That was a major concern in the biology classes. So student cost, textbooks cost per student is quite, the numbers are really large. So in our department, more than 20 courses, almost 20 courses actually now using OER textbooks. And student saves around $300 in general chemistry. And if that students have to also take biology classes, that's more than $200. If students have to take chemistry and physics, that's still more than $500 per semester, just for the 2 courses. This is just the textbook. We can add it on the top of that, online homeworks. That's primary for chemistry and physics. We're also using MyOpenMath, and all physics courses and most of the chemistry courses are using MyOpenMath, and the savings are around $45 per semester for chemistry courses and $70 per physics courses. And in last academic year in chemistry alone, there were more than 1,400 students using MyOpenMath in chemistry courses. So piloting in chemistry was slightly different than in the math department. Initially, we started small. We utilized the chemistry questions that were available in question bank, and we collect the students' feedback, and based on that feedback, we improved our questions, create more assignments with helps with Alyon, Ian, and George. We were started writing questions from scratch. That was quite overwhelming. We have to learn the HTML code, but we were start doing that. And after the second pilot, we start to implementing the assignments. Now we're trying to make a platform more user-friendly, so we're adding hints, links to the OER textbooks, videos, so as students can take time and learn while doing the homework. So this is still ongoing process. We're still improving questions. We provide help to chemistry faculty to navigate it through MyOpenMath platform, and we listen students' feedbacks and improving all the questions and the assignments. So we have textbooks, we have online homeworks, and there are lab manuals as well. So one biology course has an OER lab already implemented. 5 of them are in progress of changing the labs to the OER. So some of them are reuse already available OER labs. Some of them are modifying, that's what's available. And some of them are writing from scratch. 3 chemistry courses have OER labs, and 3 courses are already in progress of changing the labs to the OER. and all physics courses are using OER labs. So overall in physics, all multiple section courses are zero textbook cost. Students don't pay for the textbooks. 5 physics courses are fully OER. That means students do not pay for textbook, online assignments, and the lab manual. So the savings are between $150 to $370 per semester. And more than 90% of courses have the OER component. In chemistry courses, 6 courses are already zero textbook cost. 3 courses are fully OER, so students saving on textbooks, MyOpenMath, the online assignments, and the lab manual. And 3 more OER labs are under development. So about 86% of courses have the OER component. And similar in biology, 6 courses are using the OER textbooks. 2 of them has the OER labs, and they are still ongoing process, and 3 courses are piloting the OER labs, so we will have more, and more than 53% of the courses have the OER component. So we started a little bit later than math department, and however the work is ongoing, and we continuously working on finding new OER textbooks, working on the lab manual, and improving homeworks on the MyOpenMath. So we have 1 or 2 or 3 components of the OER in 8 or more classes. In this academic year, we might have more 9 courses and about 150 sections that will have the OER component. So this work is done by all faculty in Natural Sciences Department. Faculty are attending CTL seminar, the OER seminar, the seminars that was mentioned by Ian at the beginning. We had workshops for faculty in our department. We created workshops for faculty that were started implementing OER textbooks in General Chemistry 1 and 2. We created workshops and meetings to support faculty learning MyOpenMath platform in chemistry classes. There were meetings and workshops for faculty, full-time and part-time faculty that were working on the lab manual in biology classes and the instructor resources in microbiology, SCB 260. There were also faculty focus groups that were working on finding the right textbook for the biology classes. So there were a lot of meetings, a lot of workshops, a lot of webinars and seminars to find the right OER material. And both our departments start to be visible, and we start to have publications. The first publications by Josh in 2020. Then we have a math department, and so there's still work in progress. We will have more publications. There are also oral presentations, posters. Sandra was a faculty panelist for OER Showcase. So we are getting visible and getting out there and promoting OER outside of the LaGuardia. But there's still a lot of work going on, and about future considerations, I'll give it mic to Josh.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to say a little bit about what the sort of overall outcomes of OER have been here at LaGuardia, and perhaps offer some hints and insights as to what may be happening in the future for these types of projects. So to start, I think we're very, very close to having fully OER majors. We've had a number of discussions with people in many different departments asking about where these are. And I'm most familiar with the Natural Sciences Department and the MEC Department, so I'll offer those, although I've come to understand that English and ELA are also extremely close to this kind of idea and ideal. As far as we can tell by looking at the degree maps and seeing what the possible classes that students need to take and can take, if a student were to major in biology, they potentially might miss one or two core courses in the pathways part of their studies, but essentially they would get their entire degree in biology with OER. That can also be said for the physical science physics track and the physical science chemistry track, with one exception, and that is that there's a lab manual that has not yet been converted over to OER for technical reasons, but we're in the works of doing that. It seems like that if a student were to major in liberal arts, math, and science, depending upon what particular classes they chose as electives, that also could be a fully OER. So this is a student that would have taken every single class and had an OER component, or even ZTC, like the zero textbook cost for all of their classes here at our school. And computer science is fairly close as well, as far as we can tell, although it may not be for every single section. In some cases, when you're trying to implement new textbooks, you find that that just hasn't been developed yet in the OER platform. And so then the question becomes what to do. We're going to hear from the FYS, the first year seminar project, which is dealing with some issue like that. But we've also come across this in the Natural Sciences Department, in particular when we were looking at our class SCP-105, Life in the Universe, which is a pretty fun and popular class that we have for non-majors teaching about the search for life outside the Earth. It's very exciting. There are excellent textbooks available that have been published by major textbook companies, but as of yet, no textbook that has been set for students that are at the level that we're teaching. And so for the last few years, we've been working, myself and a colleague, Dr. Allison Sheffield, in writing our own textbook. And we've been successful in being supported by the OER grants coming from CUNY Central and helped by our department in their OER grants. But then also recently, the Space Grant Consortium, which is the NASA consortium here in New York State, took notice of our project and said that we should be funded to continue it. Dr. Sheffield's going to take a sabbatical next year for a semester to try to really finish this and put it out there through CUNY Pressbooks. And we're pretty proud of being part of this Space Grant Consortium with this textbook, which is going to open up new grant opportunities, but also as the first project there being an OER project. This is what that textbook looks like in case you're interested. It's still in the development stage, but it's coming along quite nicely. And we have students that are already piloting using it in certain sections, and there are instructors that have adopted it, including myself. And you open it up and it looks much like this. Very professional and highest quality that you can want to expect out of a textbook, just coming from the platform that's provided for us by the OER initiatives here at CUNY. Another opportunity that I see on the horizon is to use this platform we call My Open Math, which I love and think that everybody should adopt. And instead of looking at My Open Math as an integrated website, look at the back-end software, which is called iMathAS, and actually build it for our own use. It's an open source software, so we can use it, adopt it, and modify it the way we would like to. And so I was very pleased to have been given an auxiliary grant from the OER round from CUNY this semester, and this entire year, in fact, to look at how we might pilot something like this. And this is the result. So this looks, if you've looked at the interfaces that have been offered up till now, very similar to the homework interfaces that we've been showing. But the difference is we have complete developmental control over this, which means that we can rebrand it as LaGuardia Open Learning. We can make the interface much more user-friendly, so it's easier for professors to use, to develop, and to modify questions. And then we can also expand away from just natural sciences and mech and into other departments as well by adopting new styles of questions, new types of interactivities, things that are not necessarily being developed by the developers who are using the MyOpenMath modules that are wonderful and I love and use, but because their emphasis has been mostly on thinking about mathematics and are allowing other disciplines along for the ride, we really could adopt that, fork the software, and come up with a way that LaGuardia could lead as an open learning institution through software, through this sort of development. So our pilot, it continues. This is what it looks like. It's on our own server. There are technical and legal aspects we need to navigate in order to roll this out for everybody. But this is something to look forward to, I hope, in the future, that we might have our own LaGuardia open learning platform, maybe even put like Blackboard and Brightspace out of business as well as Barnes & Noble. So this is kind of the idea behind that. It has full learning management capabilities, so we can do that ourselves. We don't have to have a vendor do that for us. We also have LTI, so if we keep Brightspace, we should, if we are given legal clearance to do so, be able to connect our courses through Brightspace or Blackboard at this point, and this server. And so we continue to modify, make new user-friendliness options, and our pilot study is coming close to an end. We'll have a report, and hopefully we'll be able to implement this at scale in a similar fashion that we were showing you that other projects have happened. I think it's important also to express thanks for all the support that we've gotten to do these OER initiatives. And so here's just a short and incomplete list of some of the support that we have gotten. The chairs that have been mentioned many times have been very supportive of these OER initiatives, and the departments as well seem to be working towards these great goals. And I would be remiss if we didn't mention support staff who have been very vital in helping us manage grants and making sure people get paid, things like that. Program directors and course coordinators are especially important. They're the ones that actually make the decisions about whether and how we implement OER. And we definitely need to thank them. The librarians, in many cases, have been leading the way, and we're just trying to catch up to where they are. And so you've heard from Professor McDermott, but we have other librarians here today that have all been very supportive and frankly, the most innovative users and thinkers when it comes to OER throughout our institution. The Center for Teaching and Learning has been supported. We've run our own seminars, and we have provided many different ways of interacting with OER in various seminars in the CTL. Full-time faculty, part-time faculty have all been involved in this work. We've had many community laboratory technicians that have worked with us. And of course, I think one group that we should thank as well are students. One of the overarching ideas about OER is that there's something called open pedagogy, where you involve students directly in the production of educational knowledge and the production of educational resources, which we can do simply because we've opened up the whole process. And so those are the people I think are a partial list of who we should be thanking and looking forward to in involvements in future projects. And I think the future does look very bright.
Thank you, Josh and Martha. As I mentioned before, this is not just a celebration for math and natural science, but it is a celebration for all the outstanding work that have been done about OER across the college. I would like then to welcome my dear friends and co-hosts for the OER seminar, Emma Handel and Rena Grossman from the library, as well as Paul Fest from the English department. Oh, it's Ian, okay. It's a substitution, last minute substitution, sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry, you're stuck with me again to talk about the first year seminar textbook project. Let me make sure I have it here. That's the PowerPoint. Thank you, Marta. Yeah, there we go. Thanks. No problem at all. Okay. So I'm pinch hitting here for some colleagues, but I have been involved in this project here, the first year seminar OER textbook. So this has been a project also funded by the New York State grant. It's been really exciting because what we're doing with this project, and actually let me just back up and first say, this is being led by Ellen Quish, first year success coordinator, wearer of many hats, fearless leader. She's been really wonderful, but also we've worked involved in the project team. I have a list later on, but just this year alone, we've had Professor Christine Marks in the English department, Professor Preeti Radhakrishnan from Natural Science, as well as Emma Hanta, Rena Grossman, and myself from the library, along with fantastic students as well. And basically what we're trying to do with this is create a textbook that is applicable across first year seminar courses and really takes into account students' perspectives. And that's really been central to the project from the beginning. It includes photographs taken by students, like of LaGuardia students, video testimonials from students here at LaGuardia, oftentimes produced by students. So they have been really integrated, and as Josh just mentioned with open pedagogy, this first year seminar textbook project really has open pedagogy at its core. It is currently being made in CUNY Pressbooks. There are a couple chapters that are available now that I will highlight in just a moment that are going to be used in the fall semester. They're being piloted now, but we're going to roll it out in the fall. So important in thinking about this textbook is to really think about the first year seminar course design. For those of you who teach the first year seminar, you're very familiar with this. For those of you who don't, you know it's important to know that built into the first year seminar course is a lot of material that's really getting students acclimated to the college experience. And so we have here, issues like the faculty hour, but then the studio hour when they're working with student success mentors. There's introduction to discipline. There's academic planning. There's a lot of information covered around advisement. college resources, co-curricular engagement. These are all elements that have to be incorporated into a textbook that's going to work for the first-year seminar program. And let me just briefly touch on 2 of the chapters that are currently being piloted. The first is section 1 on orientation, and this includes a welcome for LaGuardia students. There was a real emphasis from the beginning to make this a book that, or an online publication that's really going to welcome students. And so there's, a video greeting. There's a whole section on what is the first year seminar and why does it matter, and also around students' identity at the college. I think we have a really strong sense of community here at LaGuardia, but I think that really takes a lot of work because we are a large urban college. Students are coming from all over New York City, and in order to welcome students coming from many different backgrounds, many different countries, perhaps this is their first experience, at a higher education institution in the U.S., it's really important that they be able to sort of keep their identity intact, but also be able to identify with others at the college. And then the second section that's currently being piloted is called Acing Academics. And this is a really interesting one because it really gets at some of the foundational skills that are core to the first year seminar experience. So there's a section on metacognition and the neuroscience of learning. We have a lot on time management and procrastination. Really trying to, not that any of us know anything about procrastination, right? So I think I'll be reading this book when it's available to everybody. But we really wanted to get into some of the really important skills of whether it's note taking, reading skills, test taking, so that students are really grounded in those foundational skills, but also we have an opportunity through the first year seminar textbook to do 2 things at once that I think those who are involved in the program understand and appreciate, which is that there's a lot of, it's a very heterogeneous program, across many disciplines. Some courses have a very set schedule, or a set syllabus, for example, like in health sciences. But then, for example, the liberal arts first-year seminar course, people are free to really teach however they want, more like an English 101 type class. But so we really wanted to find a way to standardize things when possible and when appropriate, while also leaving that kind of flexibility across the courses. And as I mentioned, open pedagogy has really been core to this and really learning from students. So the 2 years that we've been working on this book so far have been really informative because we started with a large group of instructors last year who were each writing their own chapter, and but at the same time, we're also working with students who were serving as peer editors on that content. So we would meet, I feel like it was several times a semester, if not monthly, where the students would be invited, the instructors would be invited, and those of us involved in the kind of core group would all go over the content together in breakout groups, sharing insights across the different chapters, so that what we're really trying to build is something that not only reflects students' lived experience and their needs, but it's really partly created by them and with them. And that's just a different model than I think a lot of people go for when it comes to writing textbooks. And it may not work in every single discipline, but this is one where I think everyone in the project agrees it's really crucial, since this is like often the first experience students have at LaGuardia is the first year seminar course. And so I think this covers some of the things that I was just saying. For example, that we want to emphasize excuse me, their identity as a student, that the material recognizes the diverse experiences students bring to the college, that the material is engaging, and that the material is accessible to students with diverse needs and linguistic backgrounds. And it's been really amazing to see students use this rubric when reading these different chapters. Like, for example, Emma, Rena, and myself are working on a couple chapters right now, and the students have provided us with amazing feedback before we even have put it into Pressbooks. It's really in draft form, but they are involved from those early stages so that by the time we are ready to put this content into Pressbooks and to maybe pilot it, it's already gone through a few rounds with, back and forth between students, faculty, staff. And so it really has, and we've, made these rubrics to give the students the guidance they need to also assess this content with us. So it's really been nicely scaffolded and really well organized. And so what's next? We have 2 big sections in the works: Knowing Your Discipline, which is where some of the library chapters around information literacy and introduction to research will be, as well as general introductions into different disciplines that are reflected in the first year seminar, but also Broadening My Perspective, which also helps students take their experience at LaGuardia and think about it and project out into the world, and how their experiences here at LaGuardia will follow them, whether it's, whether they're completing a degree here or transferring to another CUNY or a 4-year college or university elsewhere. So again, it's a book that's going to, take them as they arrive, but also help them through that semester think about their life at LaGuardia beyond that class, but also beyond their time at LaGuardia. And just to quickly finish up, this has been the first year seminar OER project team this year. In particular, I do want to mention Christina Graham and Yana Odysseus, who have been the student workers on the project. They've had really just invaluable contributions to this. And it's been really fun to work with them, and also just a really fantastic experience working with the entire team. So thank you very much. We'll have more on this later as it gets piloted and rolled out at the college. So thanks for your time, and I'm going to pass it off to Paul to talk about another exciting project.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me, the Natural Sciences and Math departments. Thank you for organizing this, Josh and Sandra, Alioun and Marta. And then I also feel like I need to thank, I was in the OER workshop. It stands out in my mind, and I don't know why. It was March of 2020. Something big happened then that I can't quite remember. It must be nervousness. But OER suddenly became very relevant. And when I took it, Ian, Josh, and Alioun were leading the seminar, and it was very useful. So I'm going to talk about my work with Manifold, the Manifold publishing platform today. I'm in English, by the way. I don't know if I said that. Did I say that? I'm an assistant professor in English. So I work with a couple of different platforms. I prefer Manifold and the CUNY Commons. So I guess I prefer that they're homegrown within CUNY, and I prefer that Matt Gold is somehow involved. But I am not a salesman for Manifold, so don't think that I'm like, well, maybe I am. I don't know. I haven't decided. In full disclosure, my wife used to work with Manifold and still does off and on. But if she were listening, she would probably correct a bunch of things that I'm going to say. So, okay. So the one thing that interests me about Manifold is that it really emphasizes the kind of open text aspect in a very visually pleasing way. For students and for instructors. So while the cost of textbook issue of OER is very important to me and something that I do think about, I also try to think about the ways that this kind of new world that we're living in, where we're thinking about getting together free open textbooks, that can kind of also cause us to kind of rethink the ways that we teach these texts. So just to give you kind of a brief introduction of Manifold, the platform that I'm talking about, it's a digital publishing platform developed through a partnership between the CUNY Graduate Center, University of Minnesota Press, and Cast Iron Coding. It's originally designed for presses to use as an alternative to the scholarly monograph, but I think around 2018, 2019, the Manifold team have started promoting it as a teaching tool. And I've included the coordinator there at the GC. If you wanted to get in contact with her, she's very enthusiastic about helping anyone develop projects. Her name is Robin Miller. And I can go back to that if you need to have time to write it down. But for my purposes, I am using Manifold in my classes for social annotations, and I'll talk about that a good deal, to embed resources for text that I'm using in the classroom, and for its accessibility features, which has been mentioned a few times with regard to OERs. Manifold is visually pleasing on the laptop or the desktop computer, but it's also responsive to phones and tablets and other kinds of devices, and it works really well with screen readers. I've developed 3 different types of Manifold projects, and there's definitely, a kind of, there's a manifold of things that you can do with the platform. But I've used it mainly for course packets / textbook, collaborative projects with other faculty members, people, people around CUNY, and single text projects. And I'll talk about those 3 and show you examples. For the kind of textbook course packet kind of genre that I use in some of my classes, I wanted to highlight one in particular because it's one that I started working on whenever I took the OER seminar, and the one that I've developed the most. It's my textbook for my English 225 African American literature class. And for this class, I have students think in terms of keywords of African American literature. I break them into working groups, and each group works on a particular concept in African American literature, and they're tracing it through all of the texts in a given semester. So I used Manifold to collect all of the texts, and I posted the assignment instructions on within the textbook itself. And establish reading groups in the resource. I can kind of take you to the resource here in Manifold. But you see, this is the annotation assignment, and I've given the instructions there so they kind of have that all the time whenever they look at the book. And then these are the various texts. And then when you go to the text, you can see, I don't know why it's not opening. Well, I was going to show you annotations, but you can see them kind of in the graphic on the slide that that's on the screen there. The second genre of Manifold projects that I've done is a collaborative projects with other faculty members. An example of that is the collaboration that I did with 2 professors at Hostos Community College. Around Herman Melville's short novella Benito Sereno. And we did kind of 2 things with this project. I think that it won't let me open it because we're having internet problems here, but we did 2 things. The other professors and I went through and we posted various resources to the text that the students could peruse through and that would enhance their reading. If you've ever read this novella, it's a little bit dense and hard for students to read sometimes. We also posted questions for students to respond to with their annotations. And when I was thinking about this presentation, I was thinking about the difference between annotations and discussion boards, kind of the old school discussion boards that you might see in Blackboard or something like that. And in my experience, students are more likely to respond directly to the reading itself, to the material itself, if they're able to respond within the document. It also allows instructors to leave notes and comments in kind of a quicker, kind of more responsive kind of fashion than they would on a discussion board. And it also looks better. And the third project that, the third genre of project that I have used in classes is the single author, single text project. And this is a book that is kind of like a forgotten archival material that I came across in my research. It's a short song book called Original Anti-Slavery Songs by Joshua McCarter Simpson. My research is on 19th century anti-slavery music. And I developed a resource for this book based on the archival material that I found, and I made a digital edition in Manifold that represents this edition. I highlight this because it's a way that instructors can sort of kind of merge their research with their teaching, and a way that they can represent their research in the classroom. It also allows students to have access and influence on a scholar's research, or even how a digital edition might function. Usually we have digital editions of texts are sort of edited by a scholar, you publish through a traditional press, and that's how they make it to students. This is more responsive than that. It allows students to comment on what resource they might need in a particular text. It also allows students to tell what's not, to tell the instructor, the editor of the digital edition, what's not working about a particular text. And I don't know if the internet started. Yeah, okay, so it pulled up. So this is a text from the African American literature class. But you see, like you can see the underlined bits are things that are annotated. This is an annotation I made to give clarity to students, and you can see that it's very sort of visually pleasing and kind of easy to read. And I won't risk showing you the other projects because it might take forever to load. And I don't know if there's time for questions, but I thought it would be polite to ask. I don't know who's next. And I should say I'm happy to talk about this to anyone who wants to.
Thank you, Paul. We don't have very many people here, but on the schedule we have a Q&A, and so if those that gave presentations would like to come up and answer any questions, happy to take questions, including Paul. So if the presenters want to come up. No questions? Okay. Well, if there are no questions, I want to thank everybody one more time. Oh, there is a question. Okay.
So my question is about the figure that's on the LaGuardia website, the estimated cost for 1 year for a student's textbook being $1,500 a year. And it's sort of more of just like an open question about whether getting, now that there's so much OER at LaGuardia, getting a more accurate read on what the per year cost of textbooks for a student would be, whether an initiative to kind of assess that number would make sense and revise it on the website, because this is kind of an enrollment issue, you know, like students are seeing this number on the website and they might be freaked out by that. So yeah, just a question about whether it would make sense to try to revise that.
I think, whoa, wow, hot mic. That's a really good question. And I don't know if Andy maybe knows something about how that number gets calculated, because I honestly don't. Come on up, Andy.
I'm pretty sure that's a Fed number that comes from either the Department of Education or an advocacy group who's working with the Department of Education to set that number. I've seen that as that number for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now, and it's one that a lot of OER like advocacy uses as like, this is really insanely high and this is why we should be doing the work that we're doing. So, but it is a good question, how to figure that out. I know your president said about, you know, losing Barnes and Noble. Are you guys an Academos campus? No? Okay, because there would be a way, because there's no, I was told, at least by the university registrar, whether or not he was, you know, blowing smoke up my whatever, or not, is another question, that you cannot pull textbook data from CUNY First. You can only really see it from, either from Academos, who provider for most of the university system. You could do surveys, right? Like just kind of move through and do some Google Forms and figure out what people are doing, figure it out. But I think you're right. It is kind of like not a great message to give to students if it's not entirely accurate, and it's going to make them sort of balk at the cost of school. So